The bedsheet bit into Lila's palms, rough cotton digging deep enough to leave faint red grooves across her skin. Her sneakers scraped against the outer siding of the two-story guest wing, her body hanging half out the open second-floor window. Cool spring Texas air brushing over the black, funeral-style designer dress she'd pulled from the guest closet. 3 buttery croissants were crammed tight in her mouth, stolen earlier from the estate's oversized kitchen, crumbs already melting against her tongue. She could barely breathe around them, let alone make a sound. This whole plan had felt genius 30 minutes earlier. For 12 long days she had been trapped inside this walled-off Hale family compound, dropped unceremoniously into the lives of 7 half-brothers she had never known existed until her foster guardian's death. Their shared father, a powerful man who had never once acknowledged her existence while he lived, had left paperwork pulling her into their orbit. Lila wanted nothing to do with their money, their name, their sprawling luxury world. Her entire mission was simple: behave badly enough, push hard enough, make every single one of them resent her, until they grew tired and cut her loose. Then she could vanish back to the quiet, unremarkable working-class life she knew. No trust funds, no fancy estates, no complicated billionaire family ties hanging over her future. She had tried everything already. She'd argued over dinner, ignored their invitations, rolled her eyes through their meetings, said every sharp thing she could think of to rub them the wrong way. Nothing had stuck. They were far too polite, far too patient. So escape by bedsheet rope became plan B. It was messy, ridiculous, and far from perfect. But it was her best shot yet. She was just shifting her weight, preparing to lower herself the final few feet to the grass below, when she heard footsteps. Multiple sets of them, heavy and steady across the stone patio beneath her window. Lila froze. Her heart slammed hard against her ribs. She tilted her head down, and there they were, all 7 of the Halers, standing clustered together on the lawn staring straight at her. The oldest, stood at the front, broad-shouldered and unreadable, his jaws tight. Jasper leaned slightly forward with sharp, curious. Milo's brow furrowed, already processing the scene like he was untangling some complicated legal case. Reese's expression held a flicker of quiet. Elias's mouth had open, clearly horrified by the public spectacle unfolding in front of him. Bo took an involuntary step forward, body tensed like he was ready to catch her, slipped. And Ford, the youngest, blinked rapidly, fascination glowing across his face as if he had just stumbled onto some strange new. Panic exploded inside. Oh no, oh hell, this cannot be happening. Of course they picked this exact moment to wonder by. One of them. I look completely absurd, hanging out a window with a mouth stuffed full of croissants. This was supposed to be my great escape. Instead, I get caught red-handed. Please get mad, yell at me, call me reckless and ungrateful. Kick me off this property. That is exactly what I want. Just be furious so I leave. No words left her lips. Those thoughts never crawl. But she watched everyone below react. Kai's cold expression shifted, a faint look of surprise on his face. Jasper huffed a quiet laugh. Milo blinked, tilting his head, like he had just picked up information he had not received. They had heard her. Every single chaotic, desperate thought running wild brain. Lila's blood turned cold. She had noticed small odd things over these past 12 days. Comments that mirrored she had only thought. Questions that referenced ideas she had never spoken aloud. She had brushed them off as coincident, as lucky guesses. It was no coincidence. They were her inner voice. Every sarcastic retort, every bitter wish, every panicked escape plan. Bo raised both hands slowly, speaking in a calm, steady tone, careful not to be dangled. Lila let go of the sheet. You are going to fall and hurt yourself. Come back inside. He was angry. That was the worst possible thing he could have said. That was supposed to be the response. His mind spiraled again. Not angry? How are you not angry? I was trying to sneak out of your estate in the most ridiculous way imaginable. I want you all to hate me. Why are you not furious? Again, she watched them register every word she never said. Jasper crossed his arms over his chest, amusement evident in his posture. Kai sighed deeply. Get her down safely, Kai ordered, his voice carrying across the quiet yard. 2 security moved quickly toward the house. Lila felt the bedsheets in her sweating hands. The croissant slipped, one tumbling out of her mouth and plummeting down to land on the grass at their feet. She was still dangling halfway out the window, trapped, her entire mission completely backfiring. She had set out to make 7 billionaires despise her. Instead, they knew every secret thought she tried so hard to hide. There would be no easy rejection, no quick release from this estate. Whatever came next, her old plan was already dead. Sleep barely came for Lila that night. She lay staring at the dark ceiling of her guest suite, replaying the image of Bo's blood-streaked forearm over and over behind her eyelids. The weight of what had happened sat heavy in her chest. She had wanted so badly to sabotage her own value, to render herself useless enough to be cast out, and she had nearly gotten someone hurt in the process. Fear tangled with resentment. She did not belong inside boardroom walls, sitting among million-dollar deals that meant nothing to her ordinary life. Yet Kai's order stood firm. She would sit in on the merger strategy meeting, whether she wished to or not. Morning rolled in gray and overcast. A soft drizzle tapped against the estate windows. Lila pulled on plain dark jeans and a simple long-sleeve top, rejecting the polished designer clothing laid out for her. She refused to dress like she belonged among their corporate circle. Even so, every nervous, rebellious thought bounced outward for every hale brother within range to pick up. The meeting took place in the compound's private conference wing, a quiet room lined with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and large digital display screens. Outside lawyers and senior company advisors filtered in one by one. Lila settled herself in a chair tucked toward the back of the room, keeping her gaze fixed down on the surface of the oak table. She said nothing aloud, trying to keep her mind as blank as possible. It was useless. Anxiety kept feeding stray observation, half-formed doubts that slipped out without her consent. As the discussion unfolded around contract clauses, investor demands and closing timelines, cracks began showing between the 7 brothers. Kai pushed hard to move forward with the merger, convinced the deal would secure their family holdings for decades. Jasper argued for higher risk-taking, wanting to push for better terms. Milo kept pointing out unaddressed legal loopholes, warning everyone not to rush. Reese remained distracted, still thinking over the scaffolding accident from the day before. Elias was fixated entirely on public relations, worrying how press would spin the acquisition. Bo, still sore from his injury, spoke gently against forcing Lila into this high-pressure environment. Ford barely paid attention to the merger slide. His focus kept drifting to Lila, mentally cataloging every shift in her inner mind. Lila watched their division unfold and misread what her thoughts rolled. They are tearing each other apart over business. None of them are truly united. If they cannot agree among themselves, maybe I can exploit that split, play one against the other, create enough internal chaos that they will decide I am more trouble than worth. The idea took root fast inside her head. She started testing. She let her mind lean into criticisms of Kai's leadership whenever Jasper was nearby, and drifted toward doubt of Jasper's gambles when Milo. She hoped to widen their disagreements, to stir. But the brothers heard every calculated nudge. They understood exactly what. No long-lasting rift opened. Instead, their shared awareness of her manipulation pulled them close to one another. Lila realized with disappointment that her tactic had backfired. By mid-afternoon, the formal meeting. Most outside advisors left the compound grounds, tension in the air. Lila slipped away from the group, walking fast across the wet lawn back wing. If manipulating their conflict not free her, she needed another escape, concrete. Something she could execute before the merger closed, and her position on the estates. She locked herself inside her bedroom and began plans. This time no bedsheet rope. She was out after midnight. Marisol kept a spare set of gate access keys inside the housekeeper's supply closet on the main floor. Lila had weeks before. If she grabbed those keys, she could slip through the side gate, walk several miles down the highway until she could share. She would take whatever cash she managed to hide away, rent a tiny apartment far from Austin, cut all contact. No more billionaire family, no more master profit title, no thoughts broadcast for anyone to hear. She mapped every step in meticulous detail in her head, turning each possibility in again. She believed she had kept the whole plan private. She thought she had it locked safe in her own mind. But Ford had been lit time. Before sunset, Ford found the back porch. Rain had stopped, air damp and cool. He held a small device in one hand, his expression eager, almost excited. I caught every piece of the night escape plan, Ford told her flatly. Every route, every detail about the keeper's spare keys. You cannot hide plans from us, not Ed. Lila's heart sank. Her secret secondary escape had been uncovered before she even got close to trying it. The last sliver of unmonitored mental space zest was gone. Split screen. That is not all. I have been building hardware. Early prototype. It cannot record everything cleanly yet, but I am getting closer. Soon I will be able to capture, store, and replay your inner thoughts. No more guessing what you are thinking. Digitally. A cold wave washed over Lila. The idea of her most private fears, her shame, her quiet, desperate wishes saved as data, stored on some machine, her skin crawl. She had already lost her mental privacy to 7 men hearing her in real time. Now Ford wanted to trap those thoughts forever, copies of them. They were at all. Down across the yard, the rest of the brothers were walking toward them, drawn by the sharp spike of terror in Lila's mind. Her careful nighttime getaway had. Worse, she now faced the looming threat of her inner world being recorded. Whatever she did next, the stakes had just grown immeasurably higher. The bedsheet bit into Lila's palms, rough cotton digging deep enough to leave faint red grooves across her skin. Her sneakers scraped against the outer siding of the two-story guest wing, her body hanging half out the open second-floor window, cool spring Texas air brushing over the black funeral-style designer dress she'd pulled from the guest closet. 3 buttery croissants were crammed tight in her mouth, stolen earlier from the estate's oversized kitchen, crumbs already melting against her tongue. She could barely breathe around them, let alone make a sound. This whole plan had felt genius 30 minutes earlier. For 12 long days she had been trapped inside this walled-off Hale family compound, dropped unceremoniously into the lives of 7 half-brothers she had never known existed until her foster guardian's death. Their shared father, a powerful man who had never once acknowledged her existence while he lived, had left paperwork pulling her into their orbit. Lila wanted nothing to do with their money, their name, their sprawling luxury world. Her entire mission was simple: behave badly enough, push hard enough, make every single one of them resent her, until they grew tired and cut her loose. Then she could vanish back to the quiet, unremarkable working-class life she knew. No trust funds, no fancy estates, no complicated billionaire family ties hanging over her future. She had tried everything already. She'd argued over dinner, ignored their invitation, rolled her eyes through their meeting, said every sharp thing she could think of to rub them the wrong way. Nothing had stuck. They were far too polite, far too patient. So escape by bedsheet rope became Plan B. It was messy, ridiculous, and far from perfect, but it was her best shot yet. She was just shifting her, preparing to lower herself the final few feet to the grass below, when she heard footsteps. Multiple sets of them, heavy and steady across the stone patio beneath her window. Lila froze. Her heart slammed hard against her ribs. She tilted her head down, and there they were, all 7 of the Hale brothers, standing clustered together on the lawn, staring straight. The oldest stood at the front, broad-shouldered and unreadable, his jaw set tight. Jasper leaned slightly forward with sharp, curious. Milo's brow rode, already processing the scene like he was untangling some complicated legal case. Reese's expression held a flicker of quiet. Elias's mouth had fallen open, clearly horrified by the public spectacle unfolding in front of him. Bo took an involuntary step forward, body tensed like he was ready to catch her. And Ford, the youngest, blinked, fascination glowing across his face as if he had just stumbled onto some strange new. Panic exploded inside Lila's head. Oh no, oh hell, this cannot be happening. Of course they picked this exact moment to wander by. All 7 of them. I look completely absurd hanging out a window with a mouth stuffed full of croissants. This was supposed to be my great escape. Instead, I get caught red-handed. Please get mad, yell at me, call me reckless and ungrateful. Kick me off this property. That is exactly what I want. Just be furious so I can leave. No word left her lips. Those thoughts never call. But she watched every man below react. Kai's cold expression shifted, a faint look of surprise crossing his face. Jasper huffed a quizzed laugh. Milo blinked, tilting his head, like he had just picked up information he had not received. They had heard her. Every single chaotic, desperate thought running wild brain. Lila cold. She had noticed small, odd things over 12 days. Comments that mirrored they had only thought. Questions that referenced ideas she had never spoken aloud. She had brushed them off as coincidence, key guesses. It was no coincidence. Hear her inner voice. Every sarcastic retort, every bitter wish, every panicked escape plan. Bo raised both hands slowly, speaking in a calm, steady tone, careful not to singled. Lila let go of the sheet. You are going to fall and hurt yourself. Come back inside. No one is angry. That was the worst possible thing he could have said. That was not supposed to be the response. Lila's mind spiraled again. Not angry? How are you not angry? I was trying to sneak out of your estate in the most ridiculous way imaginable. I want you all to hate me. Why are you not furious? Again she watched them read her every word she never said. Jasper crossed his arms over his chest, a mutant in his posture. Kai sighed deeply. Get her down safely, Kai ordered, his carrying across the quiet yard. 2 security toward the house. Lila felt the bedsheets in her sweating hands. The croissants slipped, one tumbling out of her mouth and plummeting down to land on the grass at their feet. She was still dangling halfway out the window, trapped, her intent completely backfiring. She had set out to make 7 billionaires despise her. Instead, they knew every secret thought she tried so hard to hide. There would be no easy rejection, no quick release from this estate. Whatever came next, her old plan was already dead. Lila spent most of the following morning pacing the guest suite, restlessness coiling under her skin. Sunlight streamed through tall floor-to-ceiling windows, gilding the expensive furniture that never felt like hers. She kept telling herself to stay angry, to keep fighting, yet dread gnawed steadily at her. The upcoming merger loomed over the whole household, and every passing thought in her head might shift how 7 powerful men made million-dollar calls. She could not turn the noise inside her brain off, could not filter what got broadcast and what stayed private. If she could not make them hate her through bad behavior, maybe she could make them distrust her predictions instead. That was her new plan. If they believed her inner warnings were unreliable, useless, they might finally let her walk away. She would plant misleading thoughts, flood their minds with false alarms until they grew tired of listening. The idea bloomed sharp and bright inside her, and she knew every brother within earshot would catch it the instant it formed. Down in the formal dining room at breakfast, the brothers sat scattered around the long wooden table. Coffee steamed in ceramic mugs, fresh fruit and warm pastries laid across the marble counter. Lila picked at her toast, keeping her outward expression neutral, while she deliberately fed false worries into her own head. The main server is going to quit today. The water pipes under the east wing are about to burst. One of the luxury vehicles in the garage has a critical engine failure waiting to happen. None of these things held a shred of truth. She manufactured every fear out of thin air, hoping to dilute her credibility. She watched reactions flicker across the table. Kai's jaw tightened. Jasper raised one eyebrow, clearly picking up on her intentional manipulation. Milo set down his fork, his gaze fixed directly. They recognized what she was trying to flood us with fake warnings will not, Milo said. We can tell the difference between your genuine stray observations and thoughts you force on. Lila's shoulders. Her clever little counterplay had failed before it even really got started. Frustration bubbled up at her. Nothing I try actually works. Every angle I come up with gets seen right through. I cannot lie with my mind. I cannot mislead them. How am I supposed to break free when they can read every strategy I invent? Bo sighed softly, pushing back. He looked genuinely down. You do not have to this weight, but do not deliberately manufacture chaos just to push us away. People could get hurt when resources get misdirected chasing imaginary. His words landed heavier than expected. Lila told herself not care, yet guilt pricked at her chest. Even so, she refused to surrender. She kept her distance for the rest of the day, wandering the estate grounds, sticking close to the garden paths where known. She told herself she would not participate in their madness, would not offer them a single useful mental hint whether. By late afternoon, Reese called her. A routine site inspection for one of his real estate projects needed a member of the family present. Bo agreed to go, climbing into one of the estate's back SUVs and heading out toward the construction zone 30 minutes in. Lila was sitting on a stone garden bench watching hummingbirds flit between bushes when an unbidden image crashed into her mind. It was not manufactured. It rose unforced from some quiet corner of her brain, loose scaffolding, a slipping bolt, groaning under weight. Someone falling, panic surged through her bones. She did not want to care. She did not want her thoughts to hold sway these men. But this vision felt different, sharp and visceral. She tried to push it away, tried to shut it down. She spoke nothing aloud. If she acknowledged it, would it just pass? That selfish impulse warred with pain inside her. What if Bo got seriously hurt? Her inner alarm blared so loud inside her head, every brother still on the instantly. Kai grabbed his phone immediately, trying to reach Bo, but call after a voicemail. Service was spotty out near the construction lot. Ford pulled up live GPS tracking for the vehicle, showing it had already arrived on site. He swore under his breath. All 4 remaining men toward another SUV, racing out to the build site. Lila left behind at the con with her hands shaking. Time dragged. Everett stretched endlessly. She paced the kitchen, her mind spiraling through worst case over and over. She was in to see that risk. Not asked for this ability. But if Bo wound up injured because she tried to suppress the warning, that waits forever. Marisol found her there, white-knuckled and trembling, and poured her a glass without saying much. Nearly 2 hours later, the vehicle's gated entrance ran out onto the front drive. Bo climbed out, his left arm wrapped in a thick temporary bandage. Scrapes streaked across his jaw. He was alive, but he had sustained injury. The scaffolding bolt had indeed failed exactly the way her inner vision had shown. He had jumped clear at the last second, avoiding catastrophic harm. Yet flying metal sliced across his arm. Guilt Kryla in heavy waves. She had hesitated. She had considered ignoring what her mind showed her. purely out of stubborn desire to defeat the brothers. That hesitation far worse damage. Her thoughts screamed the full force of regret for everyone to hear. That evening in the mood was somber. Bo sat propped in an armchair, receiving quick care from an on-call nurse. Kai fixed Lai's unyielding stare. "You see now," he said. "Your thoughts carry real-world consequences. Whether you want this gift or reject it, you cannot pretend it does not exist. Affected by what runs through your head." Lila could not argue, it deep in her bones. She had entered this house hoping to jizz and walk away unscathed, but her mind tied her to consented or not. Kai leaned to the polished wooden desk. "The merger strategy meeting happens day after tomorrow. We will attend. You do not need to speak. You only need to be present. What surface inside your head, we will hear them." Lila's throat went dry. Passive resistance no longer felt like enough. She could not hide, could not fake her way out. Fighting them came with genuine human cost. She was shifting from passive victim of their choices into one whose decisions could hurt or help others. There was no going back from that knowledge. Lila stepped back from Ford, her shoulders pressing against the wooden porch railing. Damp chill rose from the grass beneath them, and the faint smell of wet cedar hung heavy in the air. The rest of the brothers crossed the lawn toward her. Their faces varied, none of them fully aligned on how to handle Ford's prototype. Bo's jaw tightened with clear disapproval, while Jasper looked curious, and Kai wore his usual unreadable neutral expression. Her mind screamed with revulsion at the idea of her thoughts saved to a hard drive. Every vulnerable, ugly, desperate mental moment archived for other people to pull up whenever they pleased. This is not just lack of privacy. That machine would turn every part of me into raw data. Nothing inside my head would ever belong only to me again. The terror spilled outward so forcefully, even Ford flinched slightly, realizing how deeply his project disturbed her. Milo was the first to speak once they all gathered on the porch. As family lawyer, he pointed out the messy legal ground. There were no existing state laws covering the recording of involuntary mental broadcasts. Even if Ford built the device perfectly, using it against Lila without consent would open them up to serious liability. That did not mean Ford would abandon his research entirely, only that he could not freely deploy the finished tool whenever he wanted. Ford argued his case quickly, defensive, but not cruel. He said he only wanted to understand the strange mental link, to find out why this phenomenon existed. If he could map how the thoughts traveled, maybe he could even discover an off switch for her. That thin promise gave Lila no comfort. She did not trust him not to misuse what he captured. The conversation shifted, drifting onto the subject of their late biological father. Reese brought it up, the weight of old family secrets finally surfacing. He explained that their father had left behind more unacknowledged children than just Lila. Over decades of relations, he had fathered at least 4 other sons and daughters scattered across different states. Kids he had never supported, never brought into the Hale fortune. Most of them had never even known who he truly was until after. Lila absorbed this information in stunned silence. She had always pictured herself as one isolated mistake, a single secret shame buried by a powerful. Now she understood she was part of a wider. Her father had spent his whole life leaving pieces of his family. The 7 brothers standing in front of her had grown up with wealth and privilege, yet they too carried the shadow of his. Guilt lingered in Reese's voice as he admitted none of them had known the full scale until they went through his estate paperwork after the funeral. That was where Milo had uncovered the trustants, the ones that pulled Lila into the mention of legal trust papers pricked Lila's. Her thoughts turned over that tale. Those documents, the ones that dragged me here. What else do they say? Am I bound to this family in ways I still do not understand? Milo caught the question in her head, but he refused to answer fully out on the porch. He told her she could read the full trust files for herself if she wished, in his office, but warned the fine print was complicated and full of unexpected. Before Lila could push for details, urgent news cut the conversation. One of Elias's media company executives called, voice sharp over the speakerphone. A critical crisis was unfolding within Elias's business. A high-profile marketing campaign had hidden undisclosed contractual obligations, and the fallout was fast. Client lawsuits were already being drafted. Social media was erupting with public outrage, and millions in revenue on the line. Chaos descended over the company. Elias hurried away to take emergency calls, his usual easy charisma gone, replaced by sharp stress. Kai and Milo retreated to go over legal risk assessments. Reese left to check security protocols across the property. Bo headed toward the medical wing to rest his arm. Only Ford lingered for a moment, glancing at his tablet, before he also left alone on the back porch. Lila stared out across the darkening scape. Her old Simbu had crumbled. She could no longer write all 7 brothers off as nothing more than cold, entitlers. They were trapped inside the legacy father, too, burdened by secret they had not created. That new understanding did not make her want to stay. She still craved her quiet, independent life far away. But her hatred had softened into something tangled. As dusk set deep over the grounds, an unbidden mental image flashed into her mind. It was not about corporate lawsuits or merger contracts. She saw the estate's main west wing, late at night, fire eating through heavy curtains, smoke billowing. Alarms blew her imagination. People trapped inside. Every person she now knew, all 7 brothers, Marisol, household staff, all caught disaster. The vision was so powerful it sent a physical shiver running down her spine. She had this thought. It exploded unforced from so deep in her subconscious. Panic bloomed cold in her chest, and the warning broadcast out whole property. Every single Hale brother still within range received at the exact same moment. This was not a minor equipment failure or site hazard. This was a catastrophe that threatened every soul living. Lila wrapped her arms tight around herself, staring toward the west wing where her mental faced the fire. She could not tell if the genuine premonition, or just a nightmare born from her own overwhelming stress. But no one inside this house could afford to ignore it. Lila stood in the dim hallway, her back straight, despite the cold dread settling deep in her bones. The 7 brothers all paused, registering the hard, determined shift inside her head. No more reckless escape attempts. No more childish schemes to make them resent her. She was done reacting. She would set her own terms. She spoke aloud for the first time in days, her voice steady even though her hands trembled slightly at her sides. You cannot lock me away using that trust clause. Not without a fight. I will not be treated like property. Milo's expression turned grave. As their lawyer, he knew exactly how messy that fight would become. Court hearings, public filings, every ugly secret of the Hale family dragged out into open media. The press already circled outside the iron gate. A legal battle over Lila would hand every tabloid the scandal they hungered for. That weakness was her leverage. Over the following 24 hours, Lila mapped out her counter-strategy in her head, letting every piece of it broadcast so all 7 brothers could follow along. She would not try to outrun their wealth or security. Instead, she would exploit their internal divide. Some of them feared public scandal. Some carried guilt over their father's legacy. Some genuinely worried for her well-being. She would draw those fractures, force them to compromise rather than uniting against. First, she sought out Milo in his office, asking to read the full original Stacked legal documents lay across his thick blocks of fine. She sat and read page after page, absorbing the clauses that had pulled her into this. The document gave the Hale brothers broad discretionary authority over her living arrangement, but it never stripped her of all basic human rights. The court-enforced confinement Kai mentioned was an option, not a requirement. That critical detail strengthened her. Next, she laid out her unspoken fears directly inside her thoughts, knowing he would She told him she did not wish to vanish and leave genuine disasters to hurt innocents. But she could not spend her whole life trapped behind these walls. Beau already sympathized, and he agreed to argue on her behalf inside family. Ford remained the big. His prototype device grew more functional a day. He had managed to capture faint fragments of her inner monologue in lab. Lila marched down to his glass-walled tech lab out behind them. The air hummed with machinery. Screens displayed wave patterns meant to map her thought. I will not let you archive, Lila told plainly. If you turn that recording hardware on for any test without my explicit permission, I will go straight to every reporter camped outside. I will tell the whole world exactly what you are doing here. Flinched. He still believed his work might one day find an off switch for her. Yet he understood she was not bluffing. Media exposure would destroy his lab and tarnish the whole brand. He backed down, promising he would not activate the recording. That was a social victory, but freedom. That evening, the brothers assembled again. Lila walked in with invitation. Did not sit. She stood before the long desk where they normally held business meetings and delivered her ultimatum out loud. Here. 3 non-negotiable terms, she said. First, you will abandon any plan to petition the courts to keep me confined to the state. Second, Ford's thought recording hardware gets storage. No unauthorized testing, no sin. Third, I get the right to leave where I choose. I will make a deal. While I am here, I will not shut down my mind. If genuine danger surfaces in my thoughts, I will not suppress the warnings. I will let you receive them. In return, you give autonomy back. Silence fell heavy across the room. Her demands rolled through each man. Jasper frowned, unhappy to hold over her. Kai's jaw tightened, hating to surrender so much control. Elias breathed out in quiet relief. Her terms removed the risk of a catastrophic public trial. Reese nodded slowly, burdened by the weight stakes. Bo gave a quiet sign of support. Milo mentally reviewed legal ramifications, confirming it was workable. Sharp disagreed instantly. The group split cleanly down the middle. Kai resisted fiercely. They argued that releasing her meant losing the early warning safety net, that unforeseen disasters could hurt and staff. Elias, Reese, and Bo accepting her terms. Milo remained neutral, laying out only facts. Ford sat quiet, stung over his research project. The household fractured over her ultimatum. Agreement could be reached. Tempers flared. Voices rose. Lila did not back down, would not accept half freedom. If they rejected her conditions, she would walk straight through the front gate and Forders waiting outside, no matter what caved for the Hale name. Before they could finish arguing, alarms began the compound. Sharp, high-pitched sirens cut through the evening air. Red warning lights flicked hallways and outside walls. Her earlier vision had not been stress-driven fantasy. Smoke began curling upward from the roof of the West Wing, thick and black against the dark sky. The predicted disaster was unfolding right then, in real time. The vision of fire lingered long after dusk had fully fallen. Sirens did not wail. Smoke did not curl above the roofline. Yet Lila could still picture flames swallowing the West Wing curtains every time she closed her eyes. The brothers reacted in very different ways to her unspoken warning. Kai ordered security teams to run full evening patrols around the West Wing, checking wiring, heating units, and every possible fire hazard. Elias, already stretched thin by his media company crisis, grew irritable. He thought Lila's premonition was nothing more than stress-fueled fantasy. Milo insisted they treat it as a possibility, but refused to treat it as confirmed fact. Night dragged on. No fire ignited. Hours ticked by with nothing out of the ordinary happening across the compound. As midnight approached, doubt settled heavy over the household. Elias's viewpoint gained traction among them. Maybe it was all her overtaxed imagination. Lila felt herself shrinking under their quiet, unspoken scrutiny. She was burning out. Constant mental broadcasting, corporate pressure, Ford's recording prototype, the weight of Bo's injury, and the ghost of their father's sins all piled on top of her. She had never asked to be their disaster prop. She wanted nothing more than to be an ordinary young woman, with her own private thoughts and her own small, unremarkable life. Her inner frustration leaked freely to every brother on the ground. I am not a warning system. I am not some piece of corporate inventory. I am Jenny. Why can none of them see that? Even when I give them a genuine warning, half of them will dismiss it as my stress. If I hold back, people get hurt. If I speak up inside my head, nobody fully believes me. There is no... Bo found her sitting alone on the kitchen counter, drinking cold tap water long after everyone else had gone. His injured arm still ached, and dark circles sat beneath his eyes. He told her plainly that he worried she would crack under. Some of the brothers only valued what she'd do, not who she was. But he also could not simply open the gate and set free. Too many unknown risks. What would happen if her warnings manifested while she was away from the estate? Would strangers get hurt? That conversation did not make light. It only drove home how trapped she was. Even the brother who cared about her well-being would not let her leave. Over the following 2 days, Elias's media crescented. Lawsuits piled up, and the press began to expose the secret family legacy left her. Reporters, sniffing for scandal, started to flood the gates. The tension inside the Hale compound hit a point. The 7 brothers retreated into the private study behind closed doors to debate. They thought they were shielded from hearing, but the thin wooden walls all here. Every argument drifted out to where Lila stood in the side. Jasper argued that they should lean hard, keep her inside the estate, protect her, and use her insights to shield all their businesses from disaster. Elias feared media attention. If reporters learned about her thought broadcasting ability, the whole world would descend on their property and destroy her image. Ford wanted to push forward with his recording project so they could preserve her warnings even when she was exhausted. Reese was torn between guilt and practicality. Kai, ever the strategist, laid out a chilling legal option. The old trust document their father left behind contained a seldom-used clause. Under certain conditions, they could petition the court to keep her within the gated compound. Lila's blood ran cold as she words. Legally lock me inside this place. Use their father's old trust to take away freedom entirely. That was some distant threat. They were seriously debating right there in that room. Her original mission had been to make them hate away. That felt meaningless now. She no longer cared whether they despised her. She just wanted to retain control of her own life, and spiraled. She understood now she could not simply outrun this situation with bedsheet ropes or stolen gate keys. Brute escape and petty misbehavior had all failed. Wanted any kind of freedom? She would need to meet them on their own ground. She would have to negotiate. Study door swung open. The 7 men filed, faces worn and heavy. They fell silent the second they saw Lila standing in the hallway. They knew every word of their debate. Every terrifying possibility they had tossed to her mind. Kai stepped forward, attempting to frame the court order idea as punitive. We would only pursue that path if we believed your immediate danger. Life for 1 second. Safety was just a convenient excuse. The real danger was losing every shred of autonomy she owned. She stared them down, fear mixing with inside her chest. She had hit rock bottom, but rock bottom also meant she had nothing left to lose. Red emergency lights painted the hallways in flickering crimson. Smoke flooded down the West Wing corridors, stinging eyes and catching in throats. The fire had started inside an old utility closet, where frayed wiring finally ignited stacks of stored linens, exactly matching the grim image Lila had seen days before. Estate security sprung into action instantly, fire suppression systems roaring to life, staff rushing to evacuate every room. Chaos swallowed the compound. The 7 brothers scattered to handle different crises. Kai coordinated security and guided household staff away from the smoke-choked sections. Reese oversaw building evacuation, making certain no housekeepers or guests remained trapped inside. Elias took charge of locking down media exposure, warning every employee not to speak with reporters camped beyond the main gate. Bo tended to minor smoke inhalation injuries among the staff, his still-healing arm throbbing as he moved. Jasper worked to safeguard critical digital servers housed within the West Wing. Ford sprinted toward his lab, desperate to shield his unfinished research hardware from heat and smoke. Milo began reviewing insurance documents, already calculating the financial fallout. Lila stood in the main entry hall, throat burning from thin, drifting smoke. Her mind was running at a fever pitch, every fresh observation broadcasting unfiltered to every brother still within mental range. Hotspots along the north wall. That sprinkler zone failed. A storage closet door is jammed shut. She could not hold it back. Every sharp observation pouring out without choice. Even amid panic, she stayed anchored to her ultimatum. This fire proves my warnings hold weight. That still does not give them the right to own me. Saving their home does not mean I owe them a lifetime trapped behind these. Her thoughts cut through the roar of alarms, loud and unmissable for all 7. They could hear her fear of the fire, and hear her refusal to surrender her autonomy all at once. Over the next several hours, local fire crews, they battled the blaze deep into the night. By midnight, the main flames were knocked down, though heavy smoke lingered across half the building. No one had died, yet parts of the West Wing structure sustained heavy. Once the immediate danger faded, raw exhaustion settled over every person on the. The fire forced the fractured brothers to circle back to Lila's. Disaster had arrived just as she foresaw, and it weighed heavily on. Kai and Jasper still resisted giving her freedom. They argued that after witnessing this catastrophe, they could not simply let her walk out into the world. What if critical warnings struck when she was far away, with no one there to act on them? What innocent people would pay the price? The opposing side pushed hard. Bo pointed out they could not chain her to the estate out of hypothetical fear. Reese spoke of their father's long history of abandoned people, and said repeating that pattern in reverse holding her captive would make. Elias hammered home the media risk. If word leaked they were effectively detained young woman, the Hale name would be destroyed. Ford retreated to his lab after the fire was contained. Smoke had seeped inside. Several of his circuit boards were ruined. His thought-recording prototype survived, but barely. Alone in his equipment, he wrestled with his own conflict. He genuinely hoped one day to build a device that could mute Lila's involuntary thought broadcast. But he understood now how terrifying it would be for her if he held permanent copies of her inner life. He packed the core hardware away into a locked storage cabinet, honoring the promise given her. Even so, the threat of legal confinement had not been. Kai had not withdrawn that writing. Lila knew she would not relax. While crews cleaned smoke damage through the following day, reporters grew more aggressive outside the perimeter. Rumors swirled online about unknown siblings, about the mysterious young woman living on the grounds. News van public road. Reporters shouted questions toward the iron fence. Milo pulled Lila aside in light. He laid out cold facts. The trust document would still be weaponized. The court petition over her like a sword, so long as Kai continued to believe it was justified. A written settlement agreement was the only real protection. It needed signatures from all 7 brothers, every single one. If even one brother refused to sign, and alive. That evening they reconvened more in the study. Smoke still clung to the air, burned in every breath. Lila brought her 3 onto the table. No court-ordered confinement. Lock away Ford's recording prototype indefinitely. Full right to leave whenever she chose. In exchange, she offered a voluntary agreement. As long as she stayed on the estate, she would not intentionally suppress Jennings of harm. She would not weaponize her mind to sabotage out of spite. Tense negotiated on for hours. Casper dug in their heels. They happened when she left. Would not budge on autonomy. She told them plainly she could not live per being locked up. She would walk out through the front gate to the waiting press before she actance. Bo spoke. Kai, the oldest brother. We cannot protect the world's freedom. Words hung heavy in the room. Slowly, one by one, the brothers Reese signed first. Elias, Ford. Milo prepared the legal papers. Only and Jasper remained decided. Outside, distant camera flashes flickered through these beyond the compound walls. The pressure of public drew tight around them all. The study fell into heavy silence. Smoke-tinged air hung thick around the oak table. 5 of the 7 brothers had already placed their signatures on Milo's drafted settlement papers. Only Kai and Jasper sat back in their leather chairs, refusing to pick up the pen. Camera flashes pulsed faintly through the dark trees outside the tall windows, a constant reminder of the press waiting just beyond the iron gates. Kai folded his hands on the tabletop, his gaze fixed firmly on Lila. He was not arguing out of greed. For him, this was about responsibility. If you walk away from this estate tomorrow and a catastrophic warning burns inside your mind, and you cannot convince strangers to believe you, people will get hurt. That weight will sit on all of us. Lila met his stare without flinching. Her thoughts spilled openly for everyone in the room to hear. That burden is mine to carry, not yours. I never asked for this voice inside my head. I cannot spend my whole life in prison because you fear what might happen out in the world. I promise I will not ignore real danger, but I will not trade my freedom for that promise. Jasper leaned forward, sharp and pragmatic. This settlement strips us of every safety. No way to hold you here. No way to record your warnings. One wrong choice from you, and millions could vanish. Lives could be ruined. You still get every warning while I choose to. Lila answered out. This is voluntary, not slavery. If I leave, that risk belongs to me, not the hail. Bo spoken, his injured arm resting carefully against his side. Our father used trust documents to control. We should not repeat that mistake. Lila deserves the right to choose her own. Reese nodded in agreement. We spent years learning about all the children he had. Locking her in would make us no better. Milo laid out the cold legal reality. If Kai and Jasper refused to sign, the agreement collapsed entirely. The threat of court-ordered confinement would remain alive. And if Lila carried through her threat and walked out to speak with hers, every dark secret of the Hale legacy would explode across every outlet. Their businesses, their reputations, everything would suffer devastation. Minutes moved. Jasper's hard expression softened. He understood there was no outcome. There was only a choice between 2 painful abilities. Either respect Lila's autonomy or destroy their own family name trying to contain her. At last he pen. He signed his name with slow, deliberate strokes and pushed the pen. All eyes turned to her. Kai sat motionless, weighing consequence. He thought of the scalding accident, of the wing fire, of all the disasters Lila's mind. He thought of the burden that would follow her once she left these walls. After a long, heavy breath, the full set complete. A quiet wave of release with Lila. The threat of legal confed. Ford's thought-recording hardware would stay locked in storage. She held the right to leave whenever she wished. Her voluntariness remained. While she on the compound, she would not suppress genuine. That night, she walked out onto the lawn. The fire damage was still visible on the West Wing roof, blackened wood peak line. The worst of this had passed, yet everything felt changed. She had won her autonomy, but victory tasted bittersweet. She was free to go, yet this strange mental link still bound her to Billionaires. Her mind would still broadcast every fear, every quiet thought whenever in range. She could never function. Over the next week, repair crews swarmed the estate. Damage. Reporters lived outside the gates, gradually growing bored and drifting away as it broke. The high-stakes merger was reevaluated. Using warnings Lila's mind had offering the fire chaos, Kai and Milo renegotiated key clauses. The deal closed safely, without the Lila spent long hours wandering the grounds, trying to decide what future. She could pack her bags, grab her savings, and drive away to rent that small, quiet apartment she had for so long. Or she'd stay for a while longer. Either choice felt simple. If she left, she would have full mental privacy, but she would carry the premonitions alone, with no one ready to act on them. If she stayed, kept safety and support, but parts of her inner world would still. One afternoon in the garden, he was alone staring at West Wing walls. He didn't want her to remain. He simply acknowledged the hard to live with. Not fix what our father broke. We try not to make it worse. Her inner voice reached him softly. I still do not belong here, but I am not either. A few days later, Lila gathered all 7 brothers on the back patio as sunset painted the Texas sky orange. She had made her decision. I am not leaving today, she told them aloud. I will stay for months, voluntarily. I will keep sharing whatever dangers surface inside my head. But this is temporary. When the day comes I want to go, you will open the gate. No arguments. No court paper. No attempts to hold me back. Jasper gave a short, sharp nod of acceptance. Bo smiled faintly in relief. Kai inclined his head, feel they had written on paper. Ford said nothing, his locked away gathering dust in storage. As twilight fell across the compound, looking out over the lawn, she had set out wanting only to make 7 billion her so she could escape. Instead, she had negotiated her freedom, survived fire and crisis, and struck a fragile truce with the family she never asked to have. Her life was not perfect. The strange, unchosen gift would always be part of her. But for the first time since stepping foot onto the Hale estate, the choices were hers.